we were putting our then 4-year-old son to bed, the way that we always did. There was a bath, there was a book, and then there was this journal for kids. I don't know if any of you have this, but it's very sweet. There's a bunch of emotions on the page, and you circle the emotions you had that day, and you talk about your day. And so I kicked it off, and I said, okay, Elliot, did you feel happy today? And he said, yes. And so we talked about that. I said, did you feel sad? No. Did you feel worried? Yes. I said, oh, honey, sorry to hear that. What had you worried today? And he said, I don't think I want to become a grown-up. Yeah, my husband and I, we exchanged a sideways glance and stifled a little chuckle. And I said, well, listen, good news for you. You're only 4 years old, so we probably don't have to worry about that just yet. But out of curiosity, what is it that has you so worried about being a grown-up? And this 4-year-old, he looked me dead in the eye, and he said, the work. It was funny, and it was a punch to the gut, because I wasn't that surprised. You see, one of the main grown-ups in his life, me, the work of being a grown-up, it felt really hard at that moment. I had spent the better part of 2 decades climbing the ranks of big tech and consulting. And on paper, if I thought back, 5 or 10 years where I wanted to be, on paper, I had kind of made it. I was a global director at one of the largest and most powerful technology companies in the world. I had the global team. I had the high-profile projects. I was traveling to fun places. I was getting the promotions and the accolades and the recognition, and I was kind of miserable. I was spending inordinate amounts of time doing things that I didn't enjoy. And what's worse, I was spending even more time concerned that I didn't deserve to be there. A nice little mental habit that had planted itself in my brain at the beginning of my career and decided never to vacate. And so I would work harder and longer at these things that I didn't enjoy to prove to myself that I did belong to be there. And it was exhausting. It was draining, soul-sucking. I felt stuck. And what was I going to say to Elliot? I took a deep breath, and without knowing what I was going to say, I heard the words come out of my mouth. Yes, the work of being a grown-up, it can seem really hard sometimes, but do you want to know the coolest thing about being a grown-up? And he said, yeah. And I said, you get to choose. You get to choose, and this is different to being a kid. You get to choose the work that you will do. You get to choose how you will do it, and you get to choose, most importantly, who you will be as you go about it. And this went right over his head, of course. I think the next question was about if we could have another bedtime story. But for me, this was a profound turning point, an aha moment. And the choices that I make after that, they would be more conscious, they would be different, and they would change the trajectory of my career and my life, and in many ways, bring me to be standing here in front of you today. So if there's anything that I hope you leave with today is that you get to choose. The majority of today is about the tools and the choices that you have at your disposal to usher your products and your businesses into the next phase of growth. Well, the next 25 minutes are about the tools and the choices that you have at your disposal to propel yourself into the next phase of growth. But choices, they don't always seem very easy, do they? I've got no choice. We hear that all the time. Or I don't want to make the wrong choice, or what's the right choice? I find that when we're in these situations, it's really helpful to remember that there's a series of of scenarios that play out again and again on repeat in work and life. And I like to call this the opportunity cycle. When we know where we are in this cycle, it becomes much easier to understand what we can choose to move through it and move towards what it is that we really want. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but I was in a phase of this cycle all of its own. This stuckness that I was feeling. It's right there in the cycle. And you recognize it when there's a pull in two different directions. One saying, change, yes, it's necessary and I want it. And the other one saying, oh, no, no thank you. Scary, probably impossible anyway. Let's stay right here. That stuckness comes up for all of us. And the most important thing that I've learned through working with countless leaders and through my own experience is that this stuckness that's so uncomfortable, we can also view it simply as a signal that we're outgrowing our current story. Now, some of us think about outgrowing our story and we might feel reticent, we might feel guilt about that. That's a whole nother talk. But I'm here to tell you that it's not just okay to outgrow your story, it's necessary. Everyone, we are moving into an era where living into triple digits is going to be kind of normal. That's 50 to 60-year careers. That is a long time to stay stuck in one story. So change is important. It's essential. It's energizing. It's everything. When you find yourself here in this phase and it feels scary, even though that it's important and it's necessary, it feels scary. That fear, the conscious choice that we have at our disposal in this phase that so many of us miss is how do we want to address that fear? Common advice would be feel the fear and do it anyway. I'm going to offer up something that's going to feel a little more counterintuitive. And that is just feel the fear. Sit with it, acknowledge it, look at it, observe it, without trying to fix it or judge it. Because research shows that a very funny thing happens when we do this with our heavier feelings, with fear, anger, sadness, disappointment. When we simply observe it, it tends to lose its power. And things lighten up a little bit. And all of a sudden, there's room to move through the stuckness and acknowledge, yes, change. It's needed. It needs to happen. But then what? And we're into the next phase, and what would that change look like? What's the next opportunity? What happens next? Well, that won't work for that reason, and that won't work for that reason. And, there's this, sometimes in this phase, what will happen is it can be really fun. The perfect opportunity just lands right in your lap. Headhunter calls up, offers you your dream job. Your boss says, listen, I want you to lead this project, and it's going to stretch you into that next phase of growth. Oftentimes, though, that's not what happens. And we can find ourselves frustrated by seemingly lack of choice. There's no room for growth for me here. The job market is XYZ. Or we can find ourselves overwhelmed. World's my oyster. The sky is so blue, I don't even know where to start. This is where the old adage that knowledge is power comes into play. The more information we have, the better informed decisions we can make, right? The conscious choice here, though, the question to ask that I see so often missed, Because the first thing that we do is we run to the internet, right? We run to Google, we run to LinkedIn, we're scrolling, we're trying to find information. We call up our friends and colleagues and see what they might think about this. And do the research, have the chats by all means, but just know that the most potent, powerful source of information that you have is already inside of you. The reason for that is that there is no Google search, no chat GPT prompt, no conversation with a mentor that can tell you what it is that you truly want to be experiencing in this life, in this work right now. So the invitation is a little bit less time Googling. I am sorry for whoever's listening. A little bit less time on LinkedIn. A little more time getting to know or revisit your core values and drivers and your current set of priorities. That's where the real powerful knowledge is. I'm conscious, though, that knowledge is power. While it's empowering, it's also limiting. It can be. Because if knowledge is power, what is uncertainty? Weakness? Is it something that we should avoid? Well, that won't work. Because we can't know everything, and we certainly can't know everything about the future. Yet, as humans, we have a very real craving to eliminate as much certainty as possible. If we can also hold in ourselves the belief that knowledge is power and uncertainty is possibility, if we can let go of that craving even just a little bit, we can see the possibility and the creativity that tends to flow forward when we can hold both of these at the same time. The other thing that happens when we're able to, and I see this in my practice all the time, where a leader is able to hold both of these beliefs at the same time, clarity starts to emerge. What we want starts to get bigger, more defined than what we fear. That North Star just starts to come into focus a little bit more. That motivating goal starts to become clearer. And then we're ready, right? We're ready to pursue it. Get after it. You know, my fellow action-biased, goal-oriented leaders in this room, the next logical question is, what's the next step? What's the plan? Valid, practical, necessary questions, but not the most important, not the most powerful. I'd invite you to consider that at this stage, when we're getting ready to pursue our goals, that the question that we need to ask is, how do I want to experience the pursuit of this goal? Because when we miss this out, and we often do, we default to something like this. A hard slog, arduous, potentially looking over your shoulder at what someone else is doing. There's nothing inherently wrong with this, by the way. I've done this plenty of times, and it got me to a lot of great places. I'm just saying that there is a different way, and we can choose it if we want. That choice doesn't seem obvious when you're in the middle of something that feels high stakes, and it's something that you really want, though. I think back to gunning for a promotion or trying to close a big deal, preparing for a big pitch. This feels like the only way. No pain, no gain. The higher the stakes, the harder the work. And that's the way I thought for a very long time, until I came across a tool that would change the way I think about my goals and how I pursue them. And I'm going to share that with you right now. So whatever note-taking device you have with you, you can get that out and play along, or you can do this mentally, visually as well. And we're going to have 3 boxes in front of us, the size of a Post-it note. The first box, what I want you to do is dig deep. into your gut, into your heart, into your mind, and I want you to think of that big goal, not just any goal, that big goal that you have, the big hairy one, the one that makes you sweat a little bit that you might not even say out loud, and I am not going to ask you to say it out loud. And I want you to put it in this first box. When you've got that, we're going to go on to the second box. How's it going to feel when you achieve it? What's it going to feel like? And we're going to use our words here. We're going to be emotionally intelligent leaders. We're going to come up with no fewer than 3 actual emotions that you're going to feel when you achieve this goal. Relief, excitement, hope, joy, fun, laughter, whatever they might be for you, accomplishment. I had a client once say, like a boss. The last box, how much time are you going to give yourself? What's the deadline for this goal? 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years? Give yourself a deadline if you haven't already. Now, this is not your goal. This is your goal. This is who you truly are. This is simply the strategy that you have chosen to implement in service of the true goal, of the feeling that you want to have. And this, the time that you've given, this is how much you're willing to delay that true goal while you implement your strategy. The trick to choosing a pursuit, a journey that feels like a creative adventure instead of a hard, arduous slog, is to focus your attention and your awareness and your energy right here. You know, a lot of people believe that a certain set of circumstances need to be in place in order to achieve a feeling. The truth, you get to choose. And the more you choose to put your energy and your awareness here, the easier, more fun, even faster feeling it is to get to your goal, to get to what it is that you wanted. And then you're there, right? You've accomplished the thing. You did it. You got the promotion. You landed the new job. You ran the marathon, whatever it is. And we're living the dream now, right? This is not my dog, but it looks a lot like her. And she is perpetually in this phase of the opportunity cycle. It's a little bit different for dogs, I think. For the rest of us, though, the choice here is whether we experience it at all. Because this phase, without exception, is the most fleeting. It's not usually days or weeks after we accomplish something that we move into thinking about the next thing. It's usually moments, if we give ourselves any time at all. As leaders, I think it's imperative upon all of us to diligently and proactively measure or celebrate our successes, our milestones, our wins, big and small, because it will be not very long before we're thinking about the next thing. And oh, now that I got there, now I can go there. And how am I going to do that? And can I do that? And I might need to make some changes. And oh gosh, I'm feeling stuck now. Back where our conversation started. The cycle continues with or without your permission. The cycle is inevitable. The question is, how do we move through the phases with greater ease, sometimes greater speed? And I've given you some conscious, not so obvious, but conscious questions you can ask yourself at each of these phases to help you do that. And as a coach, I have all kinds of questions and tools that I use to support my clients who are moving through the cycle and maybe having trouble at any various stage. In fact, I'm going to share a few of them with you at the end so that you can take them away and use them if you like. But for the purposes of this talk, I'll let you in on a little secret. And that is that there is a common theme. There is usually a very specific thing that's missing when we're having trouble moving through these phases. And that thing is the most underrated, misunderstood leadership quality out there. Trust. Trust is your secret leadership superpower. And I say misunderstood because I'm not talking about delegating more or micromanaging less or doing what you say what you do. Those are all manifestations of trust, I suppose. What I'm inviting you to consider is that there is a very tangible, very real opportunity hidden in every aspect of how you show up as a leader to trust more and to leverage that trust for greater impact. I'm going to give you a few hints on where to look for this trust. This is the hierarchy of trust. And we start at the foundation with self-trust. Because you can't give what you don't have. And also, people trust people who trust themselves. This is where I have to interject with a public service announcement on the over-reliance of external validation. Some of us in this room, many of us, have been taught to adopt a worldview that says, I need permission. I need permission to show up fully as myself. I need permission to go after that next opportunity. I need permission to celebrate this win. So it makes perfect sense that we would start to rely on external validation to keep us going. This is dangerous for two really, really real reasons. First, the high we get from external validation, it's fleeting. You get a pat on the back and you might find yourself back on that treadmill a minute later looking for the next one. It is exhausting, it is never ending, it is soul-sucking, and there are better ways for us to use our energy. Secondly, and I wish someone had told me this early on in my career, the more senior you get, the fewer pats on the back they hand out. So we start to feed off of this. We fuel ourselves with external validation, and then they slowly take it away, and it's really not that helpful. We can find ourselves in a bit of a spiral there. So it's why it's important to really invest in building that self-trust. And when we start to have more trust in ourselves, we find it easier to trust other people and for them to trust us. But for instance, trusting your team to grow in and stretch into their roles, trusting your colleagues to have your back, trusting your audience to connect with what resonates and to reject what doesn't. Trusting others, when we get to that point, then we can arrive at the apex. Trust the process. And this is the most overlooked, but it's everything. Knowing that you are exactly where you are supposed to be. That failing is winning. It's a growth mindset that winning is lessons too. And that we can have preferences about the way that we want things to unfold, but we can also loosen our grip on that. Dare I say, let go of the desired outcomes that we had. That stressed out, miserable version of me that I introduced to you at the beginning of this talk, she believed with every bone in her body that letting go was synonymous with laziness, that it meant I don't care or I quit. Now, I understand that my best, highest energy, most productive, kick-ass days are the ones where I remember that letting go simply means I trust. Whether we are talking about leading a business, a team, a project, or the most important leadership role out there, showing up as an active CEO in your own life and your career, trust is the difference between showing up with and leading with control and fear, or leading with presence and purpose. Now, before I go, I have a parting gift for you, and it's a simple question. It came to me when I was reflecting back on the truth bomb that I inadvertently dropped on my 4-year-old and on myself, and that is, you might remember, grown-ups, us grown-ups, we get to choose. So the next time you find yourself stuck, feeling the fear of change, or seeking and feeling the frustration or the overwhelm of the choices, or in pursuit of your goal and it just feels hard, or when you've achieved the thing and after all of that striving, you're too scared to let yourself enjoy it, you can ask yourself, where could I choose to trust more? The ability to tap into trust, the trust that we have for ourselves, for others, for the process, this is a mark of the truly transformational leader. And it's also the most effective and efficient way I know to move through whatever phase you are in and to propel yourself to that next phase of growth, to what it is you truly want, towards who it is you truly are. Thank you.